have to pump y'all for energy tonight. Thank you. Listen, it's Friday, and what else is there to do but be engaged civically? All right? Let's go. I'm excited. Yeah. So my name is Marin Formley. I'm the founder and executive director of V.I.P. And V.I.P. is so proud to be a part of this amazing organization. The Voting is Power Pittsburgh Regional Coalition. Let's clap it up for V.I.P. Welcome to our Meet the Candidates Forum for Pennsylvania House District 24. Yes, we are excited. We know that we are here to continue a powerful legacy of making sure that our voices are heard at the ballot box and in our community. With our recent Supreme Court decisions that have weakened parts of the Voting Rights Act, okay? This is a nonpartisan forum. However, we know what we know, and we know what we know, and we know that we know what we know, okay? I'm glad y'all picked up on that. So to those joining us via live stream, hey y'all, thank you for tuning in, and we're so glad that you're with us. I want to thank all of the partners and organizers and volunteers in the room tonight. And we want to recognize our candidates, Representative Latasha D. Mays. Keep that energy going, and Will Anderson. And I'm going to get to our lovely moderators shortly, but real quick, I want to ground us with a quick call and response. Repeat after me. I can vote. I will vote. I must vote. I can vote. I will vote. I must vote. One more time, I can vote. I will vote. I must vote. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So a few quick housekeeping notes. There are restrooms throughout this room. However, some of them are in the path of the camera. So down this way. No? I thought I heard there was one down the hallway. Did I make, that's women, okay. All right, so, yep, what he said, okay? So there is a with urinals bathroom back here, and then there is the women's bathroom back here, and just do your best to stay out of the path of the camera. Also, please help yourself to the delicious snacks featuring local pizza from Salvatore's, yeah. Shout out to Wilkinsburg. Thank you so much. Community Forge, too. All right, now let's introduce our co-moderators. First up, Jalila Jefferson Bullock. Did I get it right? Yeah. Okay, so I didn't have that in front of me, your previous bio, but I did go and Google you, and so we're going to see what I got, okay? What? I don't. Introduce the hosts first. Derek from Community Forge. Okay, come on. I'm sorry. They didn't tell me that. I'm so sorry.
You're good.
Please.
What a segue. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone? Thank you for being here at Community Forge. This is the first time for anyone at Community Forge? First timers? Oh, I love this. This is fantastic. How many of you all know this as Johnston Elementary School? Even more of you. Great. Thank you for being here at Community Forge. First and foremost, we are thrilled to be host of Civic Dialogue. And we are very much encouraging each of you to be even more civically engaged during these times. Community Forge, we are established in 2017. This used to be Johnston Elementary School, as mentioned, and our mission is to drive 21st century community and economic development, one that is humanizing and empowering for community members. So with that, we do that in 4 different ways, first of which is social capital, inclusive social capital, opening our doors to individuals and welcoming them in, and then sharing our resources first and foremost. This is a byproduct of doing just that. Secondly, is through community wellness. We have a couple of folks in our violence prevention network here. If we can do a quick wave here, in which we create safe environments here in Wilkinsburg, Penn Hills, East Hills, and Homewood. Thirdly, is through teaching the skills of the future by equipping individuals to be closer to gainful employment opportunities in emerging industries and sectors, advanced manufacturing, robotics, IT, health, eds, meds, you name it. And then lastly is through gainful and economic employment pathways. So providing folks opportunity to get on the train so that doesn't pass us during this point in time. So our doors are open to each and every one of you, whether you are interested in social capital, cultural arts events, civic engagement, or if it is in our programs as well. This is a space for you all. So don't be, I hope this isn't the last time that we see all of you. Although the first for some of you, hopefully not the last. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to you. And if you all have questions, feel free to connect with our staff, connect with me. I'm here all night. We'd love to talk more about what we do here.
Y'all give it up for Derek. All right, so back to these bios. Thank you, because we got to make sure we pay and give homage and pay honor and respect where it is due. So first, our co-moderator, Jalila Jefferson Bullock, is a respected legal scholar and educator. Coming and hailing from Wayne State University Law School, I hope I got that right. Through teaching, scholarship, and public engagement, her work examines the intersection of law, justice, and equity, and explores how legal systems shape the lived experiences of communities, particularly around civil rights and access to justice. And so we are so honored to have her in the building tonight to bring that insight and perspective. Please clap it up for Jalila Jefferson Bullock. Our other co-moderator, Josiah Gilliam, the Executive Director of PUMP. He is a dedicated civic leader and advocate whose work centers on expanding access, equity, and opportunity, especially for young people and historically underrepresented communities. He is a Pittsburgh 40 under 40 rep, and his work just focuses on connecting people to the democratic process, and he's been out here a long time, so please go ahead. As much as he's, been alive a short time, but it's fine. And I can say that. Please join me in welcoming Josiah Gilliam. So our co-moderators are going to give us the rules, and we're going to get on started. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to remind us all as we begin of V.I.P's nonpartisan stance. So V.I.P is comprised of over 35 nonpartisan 501c3 nonprofit organizations who do not support or oppose any candidate or any political party, but rather seek to inform and educate all citizens in issues related to government.
All right, thank you so much. I want to echo the thanks that you've heard already. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's wonderful to be in Wilkinsburg on a beautiful Friday. So nice to be at Community Forge. So thank you again to our hosts. Thank you to Salvatore's for providing the delicious pizza, to the rest of the coalition for the snacks and drinks, and to the candidates for your time in being here. I'm going to do a quick preamble here that goes over the rules of engagement, and then we're going to jump right into questions to respect everybody's time. So these are a quick review of the rules that the candidates have agreed to, and those that we ask of you, the audience, before we get going. In hopes to get through as many questions as possible during the time we have, we ask of the audience to be silent through the forum and ask you to refrain from clapping or making verbal outbursts of any kind. If an audience member persists, the moderators may ask them to leave. We will proceed alphabetically for the initial order of questioning. Questions from then will be asked in a rotating manner, so candidates will take turns being the first to answer a question. Questions with response time of 2 minutes will be addressed to both candidates. Time for any rebuttal or additional statements must be taken from the candidate's next response. Candidates will have 60 seconds for a closing statement, and we ask these candidates not to verbally attack or interrupt one another. We have no issue or anxiety about that. Questions asked tonight were gathered from the community and from our partners, so thanks to those online that filled out the form and to the coalition of partners that also submitted questions for this occasion. One final note before we begin is that this forum is taking place before the voting registration deadline of March 4th, 2026. May 4th. You know what, at the last forum I said next Friday, it was this Friday. You gotta keep me honest, I appreciate that. That again, the registration deadline is May 4th, 2026. May the 4th. Isn't that your birthday, Tim? That's Tim Stevens' birthday as well, so we appreciate that. Early happy birthday, Tim. It's a blessing.
81.
81. That's Kobe's number. I love that. That's great. Please visit Allegheny County's website or vote.pa.gov to learn more. And if you're a City of Pittsburgh resident, please make sure, in general, please make sure that you register and vote and participate in the primary on or before May 19th using the valid ways to submit your ballot. All right. So without further ado, we're going to get to the questions, and I'll give it to my co-moderator to ask the first one.
We'll begin first with opening statements. We'll allow each of you 60 seconds to give an opening statement. We're going to begin alphabetically. That means that the first person to speak will be Mr. Anderson.
You're welcome to stand, but there's no slack.
So, hello everybody. First, I just want to thank you all for coming out to our forum and, being active participants in the voting process. My name is William Anderson, and I am running and asking for your vote May 19th to be the next state representative for the 24th Legislative District. Currently, I am chair of the Allegheny County Democratic Black Caucus. I am chief of staff for the Democratic National Committee Black Caucus, and I am the first and only African-American male elected in the history of the PA Democratic Party to represent the 43rd Senatorial District on state committee. I'm running to be your next state representative because I believe that our community deserves better and that our community should have better. As a lifelong resident of the city of Pittsburgh and the 24th Legislative District, I have fought my whole life to bring justice and change throughout our community. And I'm asking for your vote May 19th. William Anderson, thank you.
After this, everybody speaks.
Good evening, everyone. I am your state representative, Latasha D. Mays. It is my honor to serve the people of the 24th Legislative District. I am currently in my 4th year as your state legislator, and I represent the communities from Oakland and the Hill District all the way over to Homewood and East Hills. I am a longtime community organizer, longtime resident of the 24th Legislative District, and I have the honor of serving on 5 important committees in the Capitol, including Judiciary, including the Appropriations Committee, the Health Committee, and many of you know my many years of work building the reproductive justice movement in Pennsylvania and across this nation. I also serve on the Human Services Committee and the Housing and Community Development Committee. I'm also proud to be the co-founder and the co-chair of the Pennsylvania Black Maternal Health Caucus, and I ask for your vote on May 19th so I can continue serving you as I have for the last 4 years. Thank you so much.
Okay, I believe that for the next few questions, we are being asked to please ask our candidates to sit for live stream purposes. This is just so that the audience can see you more easily. And we do apologize for any inconvenience.
Cool, great.
Okay, wonderful. We'll begin with question number 1, and so we're going to alternate who speaks first. Representative Mays, you'll be first for question number 1. The question is this: what do you see as the most pressing issues facing residents of District 24, and how would you address them?
Thank you for the question. I think without a shadow of a doubt, people are at the brink when it comes to affordability. The cost of everything is high, whether it's groceries, gas, housing, childcare, healthcare, and so many more things that impact their everyday life. That is what's impacting them. The number one thing that we can do is increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour and tie it to inflation. What we can also do is make sure that every working family has access to affordable quality childcare. And one of the ways that we have done that in the House of Representatives that I have been a part of, leading the effort to deliver a child-independent tax credit, where if you make $43,000 as a household, if you make less than that, if you have one child, you'll be able to bring another $1,000 into your family's coffers during a year. If it's 2 children or more, that can be up to $2,100. And there's so many more things that we can do as legislators to deliver for working people. We need to make sure that whether it's making sure you can have accessible, affordable, quality education, public education, that we have affordable public transit, that we have access to libraries, we've been able to make historic investments there. There's so much we have to do, but the first thing we have to do in this Commonwealth is raise the wage to $15 an hour, and that is what we are committed to do. That's what I'm committed to do as your state representative.
Mr. Anderson, the same question. What do you see as the most pressing issues facing residents of District 24, and how would you address them?
So, being a lifelong resident of the district, I believe that and I know that the most pressing issues in our community is, the affordability, not just of income, but the affordability of housing in our community. And also criminal justice reform. Because in our 24th legislative district, if you don't know, we incarcerate and adjudicate more African American men per capita in our district than anywhere else in the country, right? And one of the big reasons for that is that we are one of the few states that do not invest in indigent servants, right? So the public defender's office, which most people that go to court end up getting a public defender. So that our public defender's office is not funded by the state. Our public defender's office is funded throughout the county, which leaves many individuals that are going in front of the court system left behind and left with an inadequate attorney that doesn't have the proper funding to defend their case. So most people in our community are, forced or talked into taking a plea because the public defender literally doesn't have the time to dedicate to their case, which if they could afford a private attorney, then they would most likely, beat those cases. And another problem is that a lot of people that are in the county jail are in there on detainers, and they serve more time in with their detainers than they would actually if they were convicted of their crime. So I think we need to first change the definition of affordable housing, because that is decided by the income within the region. So the affordable housing platform is about $85,000. So we need to make this truly affordable for everybody, and we need the legislator to pass the laws and the legislation to fund the public defender's office and to make housing truly affordable for everyone.
You're more than welcome to rebut during your next response.
Sure.
I am going to keep it real fast because both of you mentioned affordability, and both of you mentioned this issue of the minimum wage. So the next question that you can segue into is about that specifically, and you can share more about that.
Sure.
You mentioned the minimum wage, $7.25 an hour, lower than surrounding states. It's been a big topic of conversation. Yeah. The governor's talked about raising it. You've mentioned that there's support in the Democratic caucus with raising it. What's the position on actually how to get it done? We've heard some folks say, well, incremental, this and that. Give us a sense of the lay of the land with how those, how we should think about raising it, if that's the way we should go.
Sure. The first thing I want to address is in terms of indigent defense. One of the first things in our one-person majority that we did was in that very next state budget, we were able to invest $7 million in indigent defense, so that would augment the public defender's offices and counties all across the Commonwealth in order for there to be better representation for those who may not be able to afford a private lawyer. So I did want to point that out. So the situation with minimum wage in our Commonwealth, and I want to be clear on what the politics is. We know that $15 isn't even enough. We know that. We know that by region it varies. In some cases, it depends on what your household looks like to determine what minimum wage or what livability is, not just what is the bare minimum. And so we know that it is important to understand that minimum wage is being fought for in the House by the House Democrats. On 3 different occasions in this past 2 years, we have taken legislative action to send the bill to the Senate. As you all know, the Senate is controlled by Republicans, and they have refused to meet the need of the people Commonwealth and raising the minimum wage. $15 doesn't get us nearly where we need to be, but it makes a difference for a family who is on the brink, economically every day, trying to make ends meet. And so $15 is where we start, but it's not where we finish. If we tie it to inflation, that'll allow us to be able to keep up with the rising costs of everything, and that is what I see as one of the best ways for us to move forward. But, I love it when you call me, but call your Republican senator and that is serving on the committee that is holding the bill so that we can raise the wage for Pennsylvanians all across this Commonwealth. It will make a difference. It'll also bring an increased tax base back into our state budget.
Mr. Anderson, thank you. A little bit more about the minimum wage and your opinion and their approach.
So my opinion on the minimum wage, of course, is that, it needs to be raised because in the 5 states that surrounding us, the minimum wage is already, $15 an hour. And this is something that needs to be fought and talked about full time, right? This needs to be a top priority because the majority of Pennsylvanians can't afford to, pay their rent and buy medicine or buy food for their family. So we need to work with the other side instead of pointing the finger. We need to have a legislator that's able to cross the aisles and have conversations with Republicans, right? Not because when you go in with attitudes and saying it's your fault rather than sitting down and trying to understand what the issues are and trying to explain things so that everybody understands, because Republicans have people in their party and people that vote for them that can't afford the same things that the Democrats can't afford. So this cannot be a partisan issue. This has to be an issue that everybody works on together and that you're able to cross the aisle. Being a member of all of the social justice in a nonpartisan organization, I spend a lot of time in Harrisburg, lobbying and talking to both Democrats and Republicans to get them to understand where we're coming from. And a perfect example is when we were fighting for gun legislation and talking to a Republican that was totally against us being in their office. They were totally against the gun legislation, but when I explained to them, a position that they could understand that, guns in the rural communities are important and part of our livelihood, and let them know that I understand that issue, they were more receptive to the issue. So we have to stop pointing the finger. We have to sit down and try to be nonpartisan fighters for our community, because everybody suffers when we just point the finger and aren't able to cross the aisles and have those equal and peaceful conversations.
Okay, thank you. We're going to the topic of the economy. The next question, Mr. Anderson, you will answer it first, and it's this. Right now, Pennsylvania has no requirements or system for paid leave for Pennsylvania workers who need to take time away from work to welcome a new baby, care for a loved one, attend to their own medical needs, or to escape or recover from domestic violence. Can you speak to your vision for how Pennsylvania can address the issue of paid leave and what you would do to make that vision a reality?
Yeah, so, as I just said, a lot of people can't afford any of these things, right? They cannot afford to take off a day of work because, we know that if someone takes off one day of work, they're at risk of losing their job. If they miss 3 days at work, they're most time at risk of losing their home. So we need to make an investment so that paid leave is something that an employer is able to provide to their workers, right? And we need to find other funding sources so that we can add on to the employer's ability to be able to do this. So we must be able to work with the community and work with employers so that people are able to get paid leave and get these things and put it into a piece of legislation that requires paid leave for employees. As we raise the minimum wage, and a lot of employers are going to push back on, we have to make sure that it's tied to these other benefits that most good jobs come with, right? So if you're starting a minimum wage job, or if you're starting a job that pays low, you often don't have these opportunities in your employment. So we have to make sure that we're able to fight and work with the employers to get them to understand how important paid leave is for the everyday person. Because as you said, if a woman, has a baby, or even a male that is part of a family, it needs to take paid leave, because it's not just the woman that needs to benefit from this. It is the entire family that needs to be able to have access to paid leave, and we need to be able to move forward and move our community forward so that we can provide these services for all of our constituents.
Same question for you, Representative Mays. Can you speak to your vision for how Pennsylvania can address the issue of paid leave, and what would you do to make that vision a reality?
Thank you for the question. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to this issue, I'm so glad my opponent talked about working across the aisle and talked about legislation that should be introduced, because I've introduced that legislation, and it's called the Paid Family Care Act, something I've been able to do with my colleagues here in Allegheny County, including Rep. Lindsay Powell. I know what it is I understand what it is to not have enough time off from work, because I'm a new mom, just 3 years. My baby is not even 3 years old. And I always want to be clear that all moms are working moms, whether they work inside the home or outside of the home. And to do this job as a mom has showed me all the ways that families need relief. And this is another opportunity for our Commonwealth to deliver on relief for working families, for all families, but really for those who do not have the benefit of having paid time off. Only in the United States of America do we not pay moms, dads, or parents to spend time with their children after they've had babies. Only in this nation have we created a situation where you can't be sick from work, where you have to take your child to daycare to work, and you gotta work to be able to pay for that daycare. And so it's an endless cycle. And so the Paid Family Care Act is legislation that will change the lives of families all across this Commonwealth. Another way that I've worked across the aisle is through being a champion for Black maternal health. And my bipartisan legislative package of 12 bills is advancing through both the House and the Senate, and 3 of those bills will be signed into law. I know how to work across the aisle in the House and in the Senate, but we have to put the culpability where it belongs when we deny the ability of families to put food on their table or keep a roof over their head. And when it comes to minimum wage, that's what the Senate Republicans.
Thank you. I'm going to pivot now to the topic of energy. Lots of questions about this submitted from the community. The first is about AI and data centers, another topic of a lot of conversation. The increased use of AI has brought data center regulation to the forefront of a lot of people's minds and to discussion of the Pennsylvania House Energy Committee as well. Multiple AI data centers have been proposed across southwestern Pennsylvania. There's been some concern that sometimes developers are keeping things quiet. There's been this kind of dynamic tension between how local governments and municipalities think about it and what the role of the state should be. What's your position, and we'll start with you, Rep. Mays, on regulating data center development, kind of AI in general, at the state level versus the municipal level?
Thank you for the question. So we know that AI is here. Right in the heart of the 24th Legislative District along Penn Avenue, you can see the flags that say AI Avenue. Our district is the home to Google, Duolingo, Philips, and other tech companies. So we have to understand what our current reality is. But the fact of the matter is, we absolutely must regulate data centers. And so the ways that we do that is we have to account for what additional burdens they bring to our communities, to our district, and to this region. There have been many concerns from water drain, electricity use, and that communities are being told one thing and then it being a different story when these AI centers are built. While I am not aware of AI centers being built in our district, they really require a lot of land, a lot of space to build. We have to remain vigilant, and that I'm listening to my not only constituents but stakeholders who understand what the implication will be if we have AI centers remain unregulated. And so just because it's not happening in our district, it doesn't mean that it won't have impact. If it's just across the river to Allegheny, where I share a border with two of my colleagues, that's going to definitely impact the 24th Legislative District. So we all need to be clear about how we're going to regulate AI data centers, and that to the question of the tension between state and the municipal level, there is a piece of legislation that I've heard and received pushback around in terms of a code template that was created for municipalities to use. It is optional. It is not something that is commanded in any community. It is the opportunity to, you may not have the resources in your municipality to say, hey, here are the ways that we could potentially regulate data centers. And so we must all remain vigilant. The AI is here and we must regulate data centers.
So my opinion is that, you know, like she said, right on Penn Avenue is AI Boulevard now. So although, you know, they are not in our community, they're in our community. And just because they're not building data centers, the people that are building the data centers are right on Penn Avenue. So until the state regulates those businesses that are already in our community, that have already gentrified our community, the community will continue to suffer because they may not take businesses or buildings as like they turned Rosenstein. That used to be Rosenstein Middle School where I went to, and now it's AI Boulevard. So unless we stay vigilant and have a representative that is well aware of where we've come from and where we are going, this will continue to affect our community. And as far as, you know, regulations, there needs to be legislation put in to require that when these data centers are built, that they are under control, that they are, you know, well regulated and controlled. And I know there was some talk about, I think it's called the warehouse bill, where they will require that these AI centers put solar, that the buildings, that new buildings are built are strong enough so that they can hold solar panels on the roofs of the building, so that takes away a lot of the pressure on the communities and the pressure on our electrical grid, which a lot of these data centers drain from, and the water, and to assure that, you know, the water that they are producing for cooling towers to cool all of these major massive computers that they have, that this water is clean and when it returns back into the watershed. So we are affected because, you know, Pittsburgh and most of our 24th legislative district, you know, has a watershed that flows underneath it. So if these centers from upriver or across the river are polluted and they're polluting our water, that affects all of us, because then, you know, the environment is polluted and the water system that we drink is polluted. So we need to make sure that these are regulated from the state.
Okay, thank you. We're going to continue our discussion on the energy to talk about natural gas. The question is this: natural gas is a considerable natural resource and a constant topic of attention and discussion in Western Pennsylvania. Do you envision a way to leverage our resources into a renewable energy future? If so, when and how do we proceed? Mr. Anderson, you are first.
So as we all know, that everyone, you know, we need to get away from natural gas and fossil fuels as a whole. But the thing is, how do we do that, right? So we have to do that by investing more in renewable energy, right? We have to have programs that provide more renewable energy, such as solar panels and windmills, that are able to produce this energy to offset the use of fossil fuels, right? We have to invest in, as we did in the past, into more renewable and sustainable energies, such as, you know, electric vehicles. People are starting to use more electric bikes and things like that. But, you know, as we know, Pennsylvania is one of the largest energy producers in the world, you know, next to China. So all of the energy that we produce mainly comes from fossil fuels. So we have to see how we break away from these fossil fuels, and that we hold these gas companies accountable when they're doing, you know, Marcellus Shale, right? We have the cracker plant that was built that is polluting our community. We have steel mills that are still spewing out air right next to communities that are literally 2-3 blocks away. So we have to be able to hold these companies accountable for when they pollute pollute our air and pollute our community. So we have to hold these fossil fuels companies and these gas companies accountable for what they do for our community, and to be able to regulate and to give them fines and the things like that that actually hold them accountable, not just something, a low fine, and then 2 months later, there is no accountability. And we need to make more investment in the DEP so that they have the regulation, they have the enforcement teeth to be able to go and regulate and inspect these companies regularly, and to make sure that they are not destroying our environment.
Representative Mays, same question.
Thank you. So as a longtime environmental justice advocate, I understand the environmental burden that our communities have faced for so long, whether it's air, water, energy, and how that's had the impact on our health, and how there's always been this tension around how do we shift from natural gas and fossil fuels to renewable energy, and also people have been fearful of losing their jobs, especially their union jobs. So making sure that we understand how to shift to a green economy is the biggest piece that we have to do. We remember the days and the continued fracking that is happening in this Commonwealth, and the big push and the big fight to resist that. And at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we have a lobby, that we have stakeholders, that we have advocacy that is led by those most impacted by the environmental racism that has impacted the 24th Legislative District for generations. So solar in schools is one of the biggest pushes right now that I'm a part of with the Climate Caucus and the Progressive Caucus, to ensure that school districts can utilize their building spaces, facilities to generate their own energy, and that we can do that for individual homes as well. Transportation is another way that we can shift from fossil fuels to renewables, and making sure that we have multimodal transportation, and that we have walkable communities, that we're connecting our communities. And I've helped to invest millions of dollars to connect our communities like Homewood to the places that are central to life in the 24th Legislative District. And the other piece is around capping oil and gas wells, that when they're not capped, they continue to leach poison and toxins into our communities. And so that is some of the things that we can do, but we really have to have an environmental justice approach in how we address the ongoing really position of how do we transition from fossil fuels to renewables.
Okay, let's pivot now to the very important topic of elections. And Representative Mays, you will answer this question first. What is your view on the need for an independent redistricting commission for all Pennsylvania state House and Senate seats, and why?
So when I first ran in 2022, I wasn't even sure I was going to be in the district, because we were in the middle of a redistricting process. But for us having our current Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton, and our other elected leaders here in Western PA, we were able to secure the best districts that would deliver us the majority. Would deliver us the one-person majority that has allowed us to make so many advances in the last 3 years. What I also know is that the way we do districting often is at the peril and also the disadvantage, the political disadvantage of Black communities. My understanding of fair districting, when we create our districts, we want them to be compact, we want them to be contiguous. You're not going to get that with our current structure. It's not possible, it's all partisan. And so you are trying to win a map currently, and that's what is our current state. With the independent commission, I think we would have the opportunity to create more majority people of color seats, more progressive seats, and to shift the balance of power, not just in the urban core, all across the Commonwealth. In the Northeast, we have underrepresentation of our Latino community, and that's an important. There should be more representation in certain geographic areas, but because of how we do redistricting currently, that's not possible. So I'm supportive of an independent redistricting committee. How that happens will be a great challenge, but I think for the benefit of our democracy, that is the way we need to shift.
Mr. Anderson, same question. What is your view on the need for an independent redistricting commission for all Pennsylvania state House and Senate seats, and why?
So, as a member of Fair Districts PA, I've lobbied and worked on this issue, a lot. So, we definitely need an independent redistricting committee, because whether it's Democrats or Republicans, neither one of them should be involved in drawing our lines, because all they do is they draw the lines to help their party, right? So we need an independent redistricting committee that will be made up of scholars and independent community members that will look at the facts and look at the numbers and draw the districts based on the areas that the community needs. So currently, this current situation that we have now, the street that I live on Charleston Street in Homewood, if you go down a half a block down my street to Mertland, my senator changes. So once you cross from the 13th into the 12th ward of the city of Pittsburgh, you have two different senators butted right against each other because of the latest redistricting. And Wilkinsburg used to be in our legislative district until the district was redesigned and the map was redrawn to benefit the Democratic Party. So there should never be a process that is fully, run by Democrats, because it switches every 10 years. One year the Democrats are in control, the next year the Republicans are in control. But in both times, the people lose out all the time, because they lose their current legislator and current representation that a lot of them have had for years. And then, what happens is the Senate majority ends up, drawing the districts to benefit the party. So an independent redistricting committee would take the politics, not completely out, but for the most part, it would take the politics out of the idea of drawing our districts. So we don't need politicians to draw our districts, we need independent scholars and those professionals to draw this.
Thank you. One more question about elections. You might imagine we got a lot about these. Are there any modernization reforms, such as early voting, same-day voter registration, additional funding for voting technology upgrades, et cetera, that you would support to ensure that our elections are accessible, efficient, and secure? I'll start with you, Mr. Anderson.
Yes. So I will be in support of same-day voting, early voting, and we need to increase the number of satellite voting sites, throughout our county, right? Because you shouldn't have to. If you're working or something like that, you don't have time to go to your polling place. There should be other polling places. There are places that you can drop off your ballot so that you can cast your vote. Because a lot of this is nothing but voter disenfranchisement. In other states, they have same-day voting, but where you don't have to pre-register. You can just show up at the polls, and you can vote. So these are just restrictions that are put on our community that a lot of times it either prevents a person from voting or disenfranchises you, where makes it, hard for you to turn out and vote. And I would take it even further that, election day should be a national holiday. So on election day, you shouldn't even have to work. So you don't have to make a decision on, going to work or casting your ballot to be a part of democracy. You should be able to have all day and to have a day off of work, so that if you want to participate in the process, whether, working the polls, taking your kid with you to vote, so that they understand the process and they're able to be involved and start at a young age, so that when they grow up, that they are already actively involved, like my grandmother did me, so that they already have a feel about the political process and they're already educated and they're able to participate along with their parents, so that when they grow up, they have the spirit already, and then hopefully they pass it on to their children, so that we can increase the voter turnout in our community. And that it begins by, extending the accessibility and the ability to vote in each and every election.
Thank you, Rep. Same question to you. Any reforms that you would support to make sure that our elections are accessible, efficient, and secure?
Of course, this is a question of great concern, because we've seen what happened with the Supreme Court and the gutting of the Civil Rights Act. One of the remaining pillars that protected black voters in particular was targeted and cut down. And so we at the state level have an obligation to increase protections for our voters. And one of the ways, of the many ways and many things that I envision, one, my background is in integrated voter engagement. I ran nonpartisan campaigns in Pennsylvania and Ohio. In 2020, we reached over 1 million black women voters, had the largest nonpartisan campaign during that year, and was responsible for our victory here in Pennsylvania. It's important for us to make sure we're investing more dollars in our state budget through the Department of State into our county divisions and departments of elections, and we've done that in this state budget and the last year's state budget as well. There's the K. Leroy Irvis Voting Act. It allows for many of the things that my opponent has discussed. One of the things that's important for us to do is the pre-canvass count for elections, making sure, of course, we have same-day registration, that we're increasing access to mail-in ballots, and that we are protecting, again, we saw that at the federal level, the postmark deadline is now a moving target. So we have to make sure that we are protecting the right to vote here in our Commonwealth. We know it was effective during COVID, including drop boxes. We were able to take your ballot in a walkable place in your community and drop it off. I like to see a model that Philadelphia is doing, where they have actual brick and mortar satellite voting divisions across the city. So that is something I would be a proponent of. We know the power of voting. We know that voting is foundational to our democracy, and I'm already leading a fight to protect voters and voting rights in Pennsylvania.
Okay, we're going to switch topics yet again. 2026 marks the 36th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. However, many barriers still exist for people with disabilities. What will you do as a state legislator to improve accessibility for people with disabilities across the Commonwealth? Representative Mays, you answer first.
So where it always starts is with the state budget. So again, we have made monumental improvements and investments. The level of dollars that go to support Pennsylvanians living with disabilities, record number investments, because that's where it starts. Those dollars go to counties, those dollars go to school districts, those dollars go to institutions that serve people with disabilities. And so that is always where it begins. In my district, we're making sure that people who may have an intellectual disability have the opportunity to work. And so I've been able to invest dollars in organizations like Evolve in Garfield that are working with people with autism so that they can have economic opportunity. We have a long way to go with the implementation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we know when we solve issues for people with disabilities, that we solve it for other marginalized communities as well. And so those are some of the ways that we can be proactive about investments in services, whether they happen at the state, county, or local level, how we must improve our infrastructure so that those who may have a mobility issue may be able to get around, not only just in the urban core, but in the suburban and exurban and rural parts of our Commonwealth. There's so much more that we can do, but those are just a start.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, same question. What will you do as a state legislator to improve accessibility for people with disabilities across the Commonwealth?
So, in our community, a lot of the accessibility issues as far as the people with disabilities, especially those that, may use a wheelchair or something, we have to make sure that the infrastructure is properly and gives them the access so that they don't have to ride down the street in the middle of the street, when they're using a wheelchair, so that they're able to, access the sidewalks and travel safely. And also, as far as our schools and things like that, we have to make sure that they have the funding that they need so that they are able to provide services for our children. A lot of our children have disabilities, such as autism and learning disabilities that, they may be ashamed of, and their family needs to have the resources to be able to provide the services that they need when a lot of the parents may have to take off work or something because they have a child with a disability that they're not able to, find the proper health care or the proper child care to provide for those kids. So it's not just, adults that are affected with disability issues, but it's our children that are, I think, mostly affected because a lot of times their issues are hidden. And there are a lot of problems and issues that our children have when they're in school and they're acting out and things like that, and nobody understands what the problem is. They're just, cast off as bad children. So we need to make sure that the Americans with Disability Act is properly upheld and the law is obtained so that not just public spaces, but businesses also, because a lot of businesses aren't accessible for people with disabilities. So there are high curves that need to be lowered so that people with wheelchairs can easily access their buildings. They need to have, the correct type of doors, because a lot of times when people with disabilities can't even get into the stores. So we need to make sure that there is proper investment. Thank you.
Okay, final question here before we pivot to closing statements. This one's about kids. In Pennsylvania, the number of children living in poverty has been on the rise in recent years. It's estimated that over 500,000 children are living in poverty in the state, and they are more likely as such to have physical and mental health challenges and difficulties in learning. Specifically, what would you propose to alleviate poverty in PA, and what efforts should be made to address children's needs? And we start with Rep, I think, here, right? Or is it? Mr. Anderson, sorry about that.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah. What would you propose to alleviate poverty with a special focus on children poverty? And what efforts should be made to address their needs?
Okay, so, all of this, leads back to raising the minimum wage and increasing the opportunity for parents, right? Because, as they say is, if you show me your budget, I'll show you your priority. So we need to have a budget that reflects the needs of our children and the investment not only into, raising the minimum wage, but, fully funding education. Because a lot of these kids that live in poverty, are depending on the school system to eat, as there are, fewer and fewer after-school programs and things that to help make them be a proper, productive part of society. So we need to put back into our schools investments and invest more in the learn to earn program, where we're allowing these children to have summer jobs and to not just work in the summertime, but to work year round. So they're able to earn money themselves and to be able to help, invest and help, their family and their community. So, to lower the poverty rate as far as children, we have to invest in parents, we have to invest in proper education, and we have to invest in a system that allows our children to grow and and allows our children to have a way to be able to rise up out of the poverty conditions of our community. And we only do that by proper investment, by raising the minimum wage, and by investing into our community so that everybody is able to live.
Thank you, sir. Rep, same question.
So when we're talking about poverty, it is not a one-size-fits-all solution. We have to look at poverty and children who are deeply impoverished in an intersectional way. It is about economics, but it's also about our institutions and structures that continue to let our working families down, largely driven by race, class, and gender, discrimination, and inequity. So yeah, we definitely need to raise the wage. I've been saying that all evening. That is one step. We must also ensure that we have the paid benefits. We must ensure that we have affordable child care that's accessible in our neighborhoods, that our young people are enrolled in CHIP and our other medical programs, that the investments in public education, that we see the fruits of that we're addressing the adequacy gap as the Constitution, as we have a constitutional right to equitably fund public education, and that included increases in special education to address those who might be facing those types of special needs or intellectual disabilities. I I believe that all families should have a basic minimum income, a way to live, not a way just to survive and to get by every day. We have to build in the structural economic equality. If we don't do that, we'll always be battling with this idea that our children, our most impoverished children, will have the least opportunity, often determined by their zip code. And that we can continue to invest in programs like Boost to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, that we create the critical infrastructure for affordable housing, and that our children are growing up in communities that are free from violence.
We've finished with our questions, and it is now time for closing statements. Both of you will have 60 seconds to give closing statements. Rep. Mays, you are first.
One, thank you so much for the opportunity to share the work I've been able to do as your state legislator for the last almost 3.5 years. It is an honor and joy of my life to serve the communities of the 24th Legislative District. In 3 years, I've been able to bring over $53 million back into the 24th Legislative District, provide over 52,000 constituent services with about 18,000 constituent services cases solved just last year. And I've been able, along with my district office staff, to put money in your pocket through programs like the rent rebate program, through helping our seniors with all the state level services we provide. I'm honored to serve as your state legislator, and I ask for your vote on Tuesday, May 19th, and I look forward to all the amazing things we'll continue to do as we fight for our families, our freedoms, and our future here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
My name is William Anderson, and I'm asking for a vote on May 19th to be your next state representative. I believe that our community has come a long way, but I believe our community can do more and can do better. I believe our community needs more investment so that all of these abandoned houses in our community can be turned and back onto the tax rolls so that we can properly fund education, right? So that we can lower the recidivism rate in our community that is killing our community and killing the future of our community. I believe that our children need a safe space to go to every day. I believe that we need to open up more community centers. We need to open up government for everybody so that everybody can survive. I believe that our community, the air quality and the water quality in our community needs to be improved. And I am fighting to be your next state legislator, and I will change the district. I will bring back the community and put the neighbor back into the hood. Thank you, and I ask for your vote May 19th.
Let's please give both of our candidates a round of applause. We thank you both for offering yourselves for public service, and let's give yourselves a round of applause as well for coming out this evening. It's important to be civically engaged. The next VIP Meet the Candidate session will be held on May the 5th. We hope to see those of you who are interested in being there. We hope that you can come as well and tell your friends that that is not your district. My co-moderator will now give our call to action, and we will close out.
All right. Again, thank you guys so much. Thank you to the VIP Coalition for putting this together, a labor of love. Thanks again to Community Forge for hosting us in this beautiful building. Thank you to Wilkinsburg for hosting us in general. Thank you to our ASL interpreter. Let's hear it. And thank you to Rico for helping with the live stream, to the audience in person and virtually, and handing it, whom? Tim. He's pointing to me to someone else. Tim. Okay, but who is it, Tim? I don't know. If it's not you, I can't tell who you're pointing to.
Timekeepers.
Thank you to the timekeepers. Is that what you wanted to say? Okay. And are you coming up to say a couple words? Okay. Please welcome to...
Roy Blankenship and Meetha.
Roy's speaking?
Both of them. Come on.
Okay. Roy and Tim.
Yeah, go up on stage.
How about a hand for our facilitators? Before we forget, everyone should have received a flyer like this. The Black Political Empowerment Project and our Corporate Equity Inclusion Roundtable has put out this 2026 NFL survey. And we'd like you to do it tonight or tomorrow. While you think about it, look at this QR code and take the survey. It'll only take a few minutes. We're trying to put some information together we can give to the city, the county, the political leaders, our civic leaders like the Chamber of Commerce, African American Chamber of Commerce, Visit Pittsburgh, on what we can do better to give black vendors, entrepreneurs an opportunity in any next major event in our city, in our region. Does that make sense to everybody? We want to give them the feedback. The University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work will analyze the result and provide them with us. Don't forget, V.I.P has an event tomorrow, Saturday the 2nd, between 12 and 3 at East Hills Community Center. And if you wonder, you heard the Supreme Court decision that was mentioned by our facilitators today. We're in deep trouble in this nation in terms of protecting the rights of black people and brown people, the LGBTQ community, to vote in future elections. As you know, as V.I.P, we vote in each and every election. This banner, some of you may have seen the buses. We have 20 buses out for the entire month. In November, we'll have 25 buses out because the midterms are here, and in November, the midterms will really be here. And if you've never voted before, you must vote and get everybody, particularly black, brown, and LGBTQ. I'm serious, because this is an opportunity to change the direction of this nation. In the May 19th primary, we had the U.S. House of Representatives, the Pennsylvania governor, the lieutenant governor, Pennsylvania senators, state senatorial districts 38 and 42 in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania representatives, 21 state house districts in Allegheny County, the city of Pittsburgh referendum. And again, a referendum, if you're not registered in a party, you can still vote in a primary for a referendum. You cannot vote for candidates, but you can vote for referendums. So, please, you've heard we vote in each and every election. Let's not make that a slogan. Let's not make it a slogan. Let's make it a reality. Thank you very much. Back to our facilitators. Thank you, Brock, and our civic and our community organizer, Roy Blankenship, Jr. Thank you so much.
You can't always control it. You can't make it up, bro. Thank you guys so much. Please, there's extra food. Please help yourselves. If you're hungry, take some for your neighbors. Take some for later. We're going to do a quick picture with the candidates, and I think we want to do a coalition picture. So if you're going to be a part of bringing this event together, come up and take a picture, all right? Thanks, everybody. Yeah.